Tall and pale and thin, the girl with emphysema goes by, and when she goes walking, everyone hears. The audio is crap. Okay, I don't know. I have never been able to figure out how to get the sound smooth on this thing. I just do not know. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I do not know what I am doing wrong on my computer. It makes you go, "Oi!" Here, let me try something. I'm going to try stopping it, and I'm going to change the audio source. Hold on. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Ha 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 ha. Ho 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 ho. Hee 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 hee. And this is where we find out if it worked or not here. Let's see here, live dashboard. And this is where we find out if it worked or not. Okay, yeah, it did. Let's see here. Ow! Bugs. Ugh. Hate the darn things. Okay. Shoo! I swear. It's freaking-tober. And of course, my house has, bugs, fly, little bitty fruit flies, little aphids or gnats or whatever you want to call them. No-see-ums. But I see them everywhere. So, okay. This is a little impromptu broadcast. This is, get out of my face here. I hate bugs! Ah! Hold on. Just sprayed down the area with some outdoor, some Raid. Just. I like this. Deadly toxin. It's got like all these hazard warnings. Keep out of reach of children. Caution. Not concentrate. Do not inhale. Springtime fresh scent. Because it's always important to make your lethal, life form killing poisons pleasantly scented. I don't know. I guess this is their idea of a mercy kill. Bug lying on the ground, kicking its legs in the air. I'm dying in agony, but at least the air is smelling fresh. I don't know. Oh. Okay, great. Just a second. I have a little problem with software for getting my password and stuff, and more crap post to Facebook. Here we go. For some reason, my mouse is flickering a little bit as I broadcast. I don't know if that's a problem with the feed or what? Is it overload? Basically, this is just me. Okay, I'm not doing anything right now. Right now, I'm sort of in the middle of got a new desktop. Just got it set. It just arrived today. A very kind and generous fan bought a refurbished one for a couple $100 and slung it in my general direction. And I'm sort of in the middle of reinstalling everything and transferring files and all that other clever stuff. And he pointed me out. There's apparently these things you can get now that you don't even have to. It used to be if you wanted to transfer files from an old hard drive to a new hard drive, you either had to use an intermediate, you had to load it onto a DVD, or you had to use a flash drive, or you had to slave one drive to the other, which involved reaching through the guts of the machine to hook it all up. But apparently there's a cable you can get that you just plug it in. It's a USB cable. Just attach it to the hard drive, bloop, plug it into your computer, whoosh, transfer everything you need. And I'm like, zippity-doo-dah, zippity-hey. Happy me. I got to wait for it to arrive. Just ordered one. Got to wait and get that. I'm just coming online. I just reinstalled all the software for doing live streaming. I already paid for a professional version of Minicam ages ago, but apparently the code is on the other drive, so I'm having to use the free version right now while I wait for my cable, hook it up, get to transfer all the info from one computer to the other, and yeah. Pardon. Okay, now, so I'm not going to be really doing anything. I'm going to be I'll do a regular broadcast tomorrow. Do a regular broadcast tomorrow and get everything rolling. I'm still putting all the software back together. It's all the King's Horses and all the King's Men and all the brushes in my Manga Studio 5 are scattered over 3 discs, and you get the picture. I've got to upload the settings. For instance, the settings for a proper sized webcomic page. This is specific because the measurements and the gutter spacing and all that other crap. I have to I have to basically go back in and calibrate everything. So this is a shakedown tour. You remember Star Trek, the first Star Trek movie. I feel like Captain Kirk walking onto the bridge for the first time, and he looks around and everything's all shot to hell. Everybody's running around screaming and plugging things in and having things short out on them. And, this wasn't the dream I pictured. This wasn't quite how I pictured it. But yeah. Okay. Topics of discussion. Well, even my slideshow, even my video slideshow with all the little images and stuff that I used to have. Gone with the wind. Baby, it's gone with the wind. I could hook up a camera. I got a little webcam. I could hook it up and set it up here, but it'd just be a picture of my fat, hairy face. I'm sitting here with no shirt on, and I'm sure some of you have just eaten dinner, and not a good idea. Okay, but topics of discussion. Bum 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 bum. Okay, now people have been asking me, what'd you think of the season premiere? What'd you think of the season finale? What'd you think of the last episode of My Little Pony season finale? I'm like, I've had trouble whipping up enthusiasm for the show of late, because they've taken a lot of things and just sort of phoned it in, and did a lot of things that really disappointed me already. And like I've said it before, as time goes by, the best stuff is going to come from all the fans and not from the actual show. That's the thing of it. That's the irony of it. But anyway, I mean, think of it like this. The original show was the Model T. Everybody loved Henry Ford. Everybody loved the Model T. And people still nostalgically love the Model T. But you wouldn't want to buy one to drive down the road. As an antique, for an antique show, yeah. And, for a I don't know. Could you use a Model T in a steampunk show? I don't know. Okay. Anywho, I watched the episode. I managed to catch it. I caught the second episode. The first episode of the two-part season finale. It's always a waste of time. Because they don't use the time effectively anymore. It used to be that with this show, what earned them so much praise is that they fit so much into just 20 minutes. They fit so much into just 20 minutes of show. That was what made it extraordinary. And the show just fleshed out so rapidly because of that. But now, the first, they give you a 40-minute. They basically give you a 40-minute episode and waste the first 20 minutes on stuff that was, covered in the commercials. But anyway, the second episode, very clever. I liked it. We got to see a little bit more. A lot of things the fans. I think they were following the fan writers' lead on the changelings largely. And I'm going to be hitting on a few spoilers here, so But it turns out that. The one changeling, long story short, the second stringers, all the basically 4 reformed villains, Starlight Glimmer, Discord, Trixie, and Thorax, the changeling. Have to save Equestria because Chrysalis makes her big comeback and she kidnaps all the famous and powerful people and plans to replace them with changelings so that she can harvest all the love that would normally go to them. And they make their way there and they manage to defeat her. It turns out that. They get captured. Chrysalis is draining. It turns out that there have been changes going on with Thorax. First of all, he's noticed that his wings have changed. They no longer have holes in them, and they look healthy and they sparkle. And then the others learn that he hasn't had the hunger. The changeling hunger, he hasn't had it since he started making friends in Ponyville. Since he made a friend with, since he started making friends in the Crystal Empire and made friends with Spike and all that. And when Chrysalis regards him as a traitor, obviously she captures him and she proceeds to drain him of the love he has stored up, Starlight Glimmer has an epiphany and says, no, no, she, and she says, give it to her, give her it all. And he does, and not only does it blast her clear across her own throne room, it triggers a metamorphosis in him. And let's see here, new changelings. And all the other changelings follow suit, and they see him transform, and they follow. And now, Thorax is the new king, the new ruler of the changelings, who now all look like this. The kicker is that this is and it sort of bugged me, and I'm like, pun intended, har har hardy har 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 har. That it didn't make any sense. Why would why would giving why would giving up the last of his love energy transform him into a new kind of changing? Why would why couldn't how it's it left. I looked at it, and there's big story gaps all over the place, and I'm like, it still I'm sitting there, it still doesn't explain how they ended up like chrysalis change. The change. It doesn't explain how they ended up like they were in the first place. It doesn't explain how long have they been like this. Why did they change into the vampire Swiss cheese bug shape, and so it didn't make I know they went for the poetic thing, and by giving his love that it triggered a change that wouldn't have happened because that taking love wouldn't have done. But it it didn't make any sense, And then it sort of hit on me. I got it. I figured it out. I figured out where they were getting this metaphor from. The changelings were heroin addicts. No, I don't mean literally. I don't mean they're out there. Pass the needle. No. What I mean is that a good analogy for why they were the way they are is a heroin addict. Now, what most people don't know about certain types of addiction, all addictions have certain things in common. The way they chemically affect the brain and body, but it's especially notable in heroin and morphine and similar drugs. Opiates, is that the reason that morphine and opium and such were used, heroin, morphine, opium, and such were used as pain relievers, they were so effective at numbing pain. But the problem was when you got addicted to them, your body. Your body stopped producing endorphins, the natural pain suppressors that your body uses and produces to keep you from, to help you deal with all the little dings and scuffs and aches and pains that you go through every day. You literally have a chemical relative of opium in your bloodstream naturally. But when you start taking heroin, or opium, or morphine, or any of those similar drugs, the receptors in your nervous system and in your brain take up the drug more effectively than they do your own endorphins. And as the old joke goes, you're feeling no pain. but your body stops producing the endorphins on its own. You stop producing your own endorphins. And so, this is why going off morphine is so brutal. Going off any addiction is like this, because it's the same thing with alcoholism. The pleasure centers in your brain, the pain spreads. Basically, most drugs work by being easier for the receptors in your nervous system to take up, among other things. But that's one of the key things. And when you stop taking it, it's like having all the buffers in your body stripped away. When a morphine addict stops taking morphine, they have no resistance to pain. They are in agony for days. This is why they came up with methadone. The idea was to try and wean them off that effect. Let their bodies gradually adjust to having to produce their own endorphins again. And this is basically, if you think about it, this is this could be a good analogy for what the changelings we're going through. Basically, you figure that at some point, Queen Chrysalis, or her predecessor, but we'll assume Queen Chrysalis because she's pivotal in canon for how the changelings are. She's the reason that they have Starlight Glimmer confront her is because they wanted that scene where Starlight Glimmer says, "You don't have to control your people like this. You don't have to control everybody in order to be happy." Well, basically, we can assume that at some point, Chrysalis or a queen like her discovered, excuse me, a bug flew down my throat. We assume that at some point, Chrysalis discovered that draining the love energy out of another creature gave her a boost in power. Which is, and apparently you remember in the Canterlot wedding, she had been tapping out Shining Armor for weeks, and just with that she was able to overpower Celestia. So you got to figure that the power, at the very least, not to mention whatever you have to assume some sort of considerable pleasure from feeding like that, gave her an incredible boost, and it was very addictive. But once she started stealing other creatures' stealing other creatures' love energy or magical energy, or essentially, they're kind of interconnected in a way in the show. When she started stealing love energy from other creatures and getting her followers to do the same, she stopped producing any on her own. the reason they look like such a hot mess is because they're addicts. As Thorax put it at one point in the show, he said changelings are always, they asked him, why haven't you fed lately? How long has it been since you fed? And he said, I haven't had to feed in weeks. And he said it's really strange, is because changelings are always hungry, always in need of that love energy, and they're constantly harvesting it. But ever since he started making friends and being a friend himself, well, obviously the metaphor would be that he had started producing his own endorphins again. He was starting to produce his own love energy again. Because love is a giving, not a taking interaction. But we can assume that at some point, Chrysalis discovered that, let's assume a couple of things, that the changelings have a natural ability to exchange love energy, to boost each other in strength, and to recharge one another, to recharge themselves and recharge others. But Chrysalis discovered that if she drained other creatures, she got an incredible boost of power, and she quickly became addicted, and then turned on her own people, her own underlings, and forced them to. She basically forced them to be drained to feed her addiction, and she made addicts out of them. And that for however long she's been ruling, and however long the addiction has been carried on, every newly born changeling is hooked on the needle, hooked on the horse, ha 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 ha, right from hatching. I'll say this one thing, they only had 20 minutes for the second half of the episode, so they didn't have much time for it. But I think we can assume that in order to trigger to reverse the effects requires one, going cold turkey, and two, expelling every last bit of borrowed love energy left. So, to basically kickstart them producing their own love energy again. And I think it would have been, they didn't take the time to make it obvious that this was going to, I think they should have taken at least a little bit of time to show that doing so, hurt a whole lot. Giving up, even whether or not you're talking about addiction, giving up a negative pattern of behavior is a very difficult process. Reform, even, Christians, we believe in grace, but we also acknowledge that the process of being more Christ-like in our walk is a daily, day-to-day effort. It costs an effort to give up old habits, old sins, and old attitudes. that it requires, and the wiser ones. This is, this is why you don't want any particular, this is one of the things that causes problems with Christians who don't have much experience, who end up working with addicts. They do not have, they can't seem to empathize very much with people who literally are in physical agony as they try to give up an addiction. But anyway, I think that I'm wondering if any of the fan fiction writers are going to catch on to that that analogy that the reasons the changelings were such a mess. The reason they were starving, the reason that they, that they, look like a vampire shot full of holes, is because they were heroin addicts, basically. Oh, darn it! I've got to adjust the settings on the screens. The energy saver thing. If you don't move something, the screen goes dark. Bugs the crap out of me. I just thought I figured I'd share that little idea. Now, people are going to rag on me for my, got somebody here. I thought you would be crying altruism at that utterance of "you have to give it all." You can laugh at me all you want. You can make fun of me for all you want for addressing that issue, the issue of pathological altruism, which is a redundancy. But the fact remains is that the altruism was a philosophical concept deliberately invented by a atheist and Marxist. This guy was Auguste Comte was a contemporary of Marx, the original Karl Marx. And his whole purpose in encapsulating the concept of altruism, the idea that a deed's virtue was measured in how much it cost you and how much it was for somebody else, and that was the key to what made it a good deed. His philosophy, he invented it. He was trying to come up with a system of morality with no God in it. He was trying to find a way to write the concept of virtue without including God. And he basically wanted he wanted to come up with a way that there could be a moral law without a moral lawgiver. Like most like every other atheist, trying to find a way to pretend well. Anyway, you mock me for it, but it's one of the key tenets of the most destructive, bloody, and murderous socio-political movements on the planet. Marxism, socialism, the virtue of your deeds were not measured in the results of those deeds, but in how how much you bled for it to happen. For it to happen. That's not virtue. That's self mortification. There comes a time where a Christian may be called on to sacrifice, to martyr themselves, to give all that they have. But that's not what makes their deed virtuous, and they do that in the full regard and full knowledge that in the hereafter they will be rewarded, which is the antithesis of the philosophy of altruism right from the start. You don't, if you do anything for a reward, well, that's not really a virtuous deed, now is it? Even the Bible states that God is going to give out rewards to the faithful, those that served Him, those that sacrificed for Him, those that loved others. The way they love themselves, love thy neighbor as thyself. And the people that sacrifice like that, they do it in the belief that their reward will be infinitely greater than what they have given up. Which undermines the concept of Comtean altruism right there. And you got people out here. It doesn't, they ignore the consequences of deeds and whether or not the deeds, the actions actually work. How we've got thousands and thousands of social programs and quote unquote charitable drives, and it turns out that when they're examined, it turns out that they're terrible. They don't do what they claim to. They don't, they have charities that, the Clinton Foundation. The Clinton Foundation is a good example. Turns out that literally, this is not an exaggeration, 98% of the money that goes into the Clinton Foundation and all its supposed charitable works goes right back into the pockets of the Clintons. They try to make hash about how Trump used a tax loophole to prevent being double whammied by the IRS. They made charitable donations. They got out of paying their taxes by making a charitable donation to their own foundation. They made it. How would you? Wouldn't you like to do that? Make a charitable donation to yourself so you don't have to pay taxes? Funny how that doesn't work for any of us. Well, you get my point here. But, that's getting a little bit off the point, is that, but there are people out there who will throw money at organizations, at charitable foundations, at government programs, at legal systems, and, just, name it. that not only do not accomplish the goals that they state for themselves, they in fact make things worse. Consider that the goal of the welfare program, the food stamp program, is to feed the hungry, and and to make sure that the poor have food. Setting aside all other concerns, there is the simple fact that for every $100, for every $1 that actually reaches a poor or disadvantaged person, $100 is spent on the bureaucracy in between. As it has been pointed out, and this is not an exaggeration, it is not a parody, trying to feed the hungry and help the poor through the government is like trying to feed grain to the sparrows by passing it through a cow first. But we meant well. That makes it a good deed, doesn't it? And what's the old saying? Road to hell paved with good intentions. Do you realize how many people out there are going to vote for Hillary Clinton and claim all sorts of good, noble intentions to do it? Well, I think a woman, I think that our country should have a woman president someday. Well, you can't disagree with that. There's nothing wrong with a female leader. They had a female prime minister in Great Britain. Ran that country like a top. But in the name of seeing a woman in the White House, they are willing to vote for a woman who should be in the big house. That woman's, that woman should have been hung years ago as a murderer. And at the very least, she should have been in club fed for life. There are people, they have all sorts of, they come up with these elaborate self-delusions about how they're doing something doing horrible things for a noble cause, and therefore that makes what they do virtuous. There are people out there committing vandalism, terrorizing other people. There are people out there physically attacking people for supporting the wrong presidential candidate. And this is brown shirt crap. This is stuff that the fascists in Italy and the Nazis in Germany did to get their respective despotic tyrants in power. The brown shirts went out and beat the shit out of anybody who looked to be voting against him. But if you cornered these people, they would give you a song and dance number about how they loved humanity and they wanted to protect our freedom by saving us from Donald Trump. And they'll commit vandalism and arson and physical assault and battery, and they'll deny people their right to vote. They'll steal. They've been caught tearing up people's ballots. The early votes that people have sent in. We got that system. For those who don't know, America, we got that system of people who are unable to physically get out to the voting booth. They can apply to put in their ballot early, and they caught people working in the post office, working in the in the office, in the electoral, in the election offices. They've been caught destroying ballots for Republican candidates. If you corner them, you have to put on sunglasses to protect yourself from the shiny false halo that they put up over their own heads. They sincerely believe they're doing this for a noble cause, and that overrules the fact that they're committing an evil deed. That is the final root of altruism. The belief that if you do something for a noble cause, if you do something selflessly, in other words, if you do it, for the children, then that justifies anything. Don't mock me for taking the regurgitation of altruistic philosophy to task. It's filled gulags and mass graves over the course of the last century. Oh, bugs. Ugh. Oh, that tasted terrible. Blech. Of course. Of course, they're accusing Donald Trump of everything that Hillary and Bill have ever done. This is what Democrats always do this. In fact, wicked people in general do this. The first thing they do is they accuse other people of doing what they themselves have done. It comes down to this. They try to pretend, oh, I'm just as good as you. And then when it's demonstrated, no, they're not. They turn around and do it this way. They try to say, well, you're no better than I am. And this is what makes me mad about these people on Facebook. I've seen it talking about, they're all the same. They're about the same. Both of them are crap. Oh yeah, a rude, crass, law-abiding businessman, and a woman with a trail of felonies and corpses behind her. 2 peas in a pod. If you look at Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and not only decide that they're both exactly the same, that you'd rather throw your vote away than vote for the better of the lesser of two evils, then I don't want to talk to you because you haven't got the sense God gave a turnip. Trump is far from ideal. This is the impression I've gotten from all the years that he has been in the public limelight. Now, I gotta wonder how much of his reputation is a product of a media that obviously does not like him. Because I've never met the man. Have you ever met the man? How much have you actually seen of him? How much have you actually heard him speak? How well do you actually know the man? On a personal level, and I don't mean just his political stances. I mean personally, as an individual, as just a guy. How well do you know him? You don't know him at all. But I guarantee you've got a mental picture in your mind of what kind of man he is, based on the story you have been told over the course of your life about this man by people who have demonstrated they actively want to destroy him. Seeing how the press has treated him from the instant he became a Republican candidate, as one meme puts it, isn't it interesting how nobody said he was a racist until he ran against Hillary? And it's funny how nobody seemed to think he was a racist or any of these other really horrible career-ending things until he started moving in an arena that threatened them and their egotistical little worldview. The press and popular culture have portrayed Trump as an egotistical boob, as a buffoon who managed, they try and pretend that he bankrupt. Everybody talks about the businesses that he had that failed. But he had like 2 or 3 business ventures he did that failed. But he has dozens and even hundreds that have succeeded and are thriving. So what I'm saying is that the people that are actively trying to destroy him now, what they thought of him 10 years ago is suddenly kind of suspect. But he's been portrayed, very carefully portrayed by the media as an egotistical blowhard, as bombastic, arrogant, prone to disaster. And this is back, back in the day. How much of that is actually accurate? Very little, if any, I bet you. But let's assume that his media framed persona is genuine, that he is obnoxious and bombastic, and that you'd be sitting across from the table and you just want to smack him after about 5 minutes of him talking. Let's assume that. There is the fact that it has been uncovered that the man has done extraordinary charitable acts for complete strangers. I mentioned this before. He he sent one of his own private jets to fly a little boy across country for special medical treatment, because none of the airlines, none of them would accommodate his medical equipment. This is a man that sent millions of dollars worth of charitable, goods and products down to areas that have been devastated by the hurricanes. This is a man who there was a young woman whose family had been murdered, and he gave her sanctuary in one of his plazas, one of his towers, free room and board, while they hunted down her family's killer. This is a man who's this is my favorite story of him. He had this one mansion and manor, and he had a 50-foot flagpole with the American flag on it out in front of the property. And the homeowners association in that little area, and if you ever meet somebody that tries to get you into a homeowners association, pick up a baseball bat and beat them for a commie. But anyway, they came around and they sued him because they had managed to wheedle ordinances that you could only have a 30-foot tall flagpole on your property in that area, because that 20-foot difference meant the whole world, and their whole little world, their whole little empire would come crumbling down. And he went round after round with them, and he wasn't jerking around, and they managed to get fines levied against him, and those fees got up to tens of thousands of dollars. And he finally came up to him, and he said, "All right, here's the deal. In exchange, what I want to do is that these tens of thousands of dollars you want to file against me in, fines for defying your rules. I'll tell you what. In exchange, I will remove the flagpole and replace it with a 30-foot flagpole if you let me take this money and give it to the local Veterans Association as a charitable donation. That way, it's a win-win-win. You get me to, I drop the flagpole down, I keep my flagpole, and we give some charity to these veterans over here. And they went for it, figuring it would make them look shiny after see how we wrangled this money for you. Well, anyway, he gave the donation. He went out and got a 30-foot flagpole. And then he went out and hired some landscapers who came out, put a 20-foot hill on his property, and then planted that 30-foot flagpole at the top. And I'm like, my man Trump. He stuck, he stuck the screws to him all the way to the end, and he still managed to do a good deed on the way. And I'm like, that's class, that's style. I don't care what I don't care what you think of. I don't care if you think he's a jerk, man. That's epic, But I just love that story about him. And this is, I'm sure he's being, And there will be people who say all these things he's done. He's just being flamboyant and showing off. And I'm like, yeah, well, I like how he's helping. Great. Yeah, he's flying his big Trump jet down to pick up the kid and fly him, Air Trump all the way to the hospital. But I like how he's helping that little kid a whole lot better than the way you're not. Can you dig what I'm saying? He does things big and he does things loud. I think he is. I don't know if the man is actually. They claim that he converted to Christianity some time ago. I don't know. I've met a lot worse people that have made a profession of faith. You know, people with a lot worse problems than that, and who bigger shenanigans in their past. But so I don't know. Some of the businesses he gets into that I've heard about, no, I no. And some of the things he's done in the past, I'm like, oh Lord, why did you do that, man? But guys, I think how the Dark Knight ended, with him standing there. He's not the hero that that he's he's the hero that we need, but not the one that we deserve, or however they phrased it. I think that God has sent this man because he's not the kind of leader we want. He's not the paragon of virtue we think we deserve. But right now, he's pretty much what this country needs. And what it desperately needs is a man who sticks by his word, and a man who is ready to fight. We've tried hiring these nice, polite Marquis of Queensberry rules Republicans. They show just how tough and long-lasting they are. The moment they get in power, they fold like wet toast. They're linguini spined, and we keep finding people. They good, nice little go to Sunday meeting, hands folded proper and polite, and would never slurp their soup out of a spoon. And we're throwing them in the ball. We're throwing them in the fight pit with people who bite off ears as a regular move. This isn't working. These supposed nice, polite, civil leaders, they're not leading. We don't need leaders with fancy manners. We need leaders who are willing to fight. Because we've got enemies that have demonstrated that they're willing to fight, and they'll pull any dirty trick in the book and write new ones to try next. We've got it's conservative. It's conservatives against liberals. It's the civilian population. It's the population of America against the elite and privileged socialists who are running this country from Washington, D.C. And they're brown shirts in the street. We're going into a war, and you'll excuse me if I want Patton leading the way, regardless of how salty his language was. I like one quote. We've got this guy was bragging. I'm going to go vote and do my duty and keep Trump from getting in office. You got a high opinion of the importance of your vote, there, fella. Good thing you're there to decide the fate of nations. His reason, is Trump is mean and crude and rude, and he's going to offend people and start a war with Russia. This is what they, let's do a little callback. This is exactly what they said about Ronald Reagan when he started running. Ronald Reagan started out as a Democrat. He became a Republican. As he put it, he recovered and became a Republican. And he was accused of being uncouth, of being crude and aggressive and hostile, and that he was going to offend all these scary, scary people, and we were going to be in a civil war because Ronald Reagan belched at the table at the wrong time. What a load of crap. I mean, I'm sorry, but Vladimir Putin does not strike me as a hypersensitive pussy. Any nation, we've been cowed by the Muslims. All it takes is somebody making a rumor about a soldier mishandling a copy of the Quran, and the next thing you know, they're out there in the streets shrieking and screaming and throwing things and setting things on fire and killing each other. And seriously, that's what happened. When word got out, they claimed that some soldier in Guantanamo flushed a Quran down the toilet. Never mind that even if it is just basically Arabic toilet paper, it still wasn't going to fit down that hole. Complete rubbish. But literally, entire Arab countries, completely lost it. They had riots in their own streets, and screaming and yelling and knocking people down and burning things and smashing things, and that kept up until at least a dozen or so people died, killed by the violence. We are going up against people, the leftists and liberals, the godless hedonists, the self-serving social justice warriors, black. We're going up against people that that have no respect for civility in the first place. Can't get there from here, you know what I'm saying? You cannot take on a bunch of clawing, screeching, turd flinging fanatics with P's and Q's and making sure that you hold your pinky out when you drink your tea. This country is to be saved. We're going to have to get down in the mud and the dirt, and we are going to have to get used to fighting as mean and as rough and as ruthless as the creatures that are destroying everything we work for. Where do we go from here? You'll have to excuse me. Frog in the throat. We are in a world of ruthless people. And right now, we need a ruthless leader. I can only hope that for all his blowhard behavior in the past, that he is genuinely as railroad stubborn as he portrays himself to be. Because we've had our fill of presidents who changed their course halfway because they don't want to upset or offend anybody. Hmm.
I'm sorry. My mind wandered off. Okay, I'm gonna call it a night. Goodness. Well, that's just how it goes. I still got programs to align and stuff to plug in and settings to reset and dealy bobs to set up. So I'm stop right here. I'll be running a regular show tomorrow. Get back in the groove, start getting things done again. You all take care of yourselves. I'll see you later.